Buckle up, buckaroos, because this week I'm dropping you the Bestler of Werstler. Well, hello there, kids, and welcome to a brand new installment of Weekend Wankshop here with your good pal, Uncle Ben. On this week's episode, we're going to take a look at a sick lick from my good friend Emil Werstler, who some of you guys might know from playing in metal bands like Chimaira and Daath. I first got to know Emil a couple of years ago when I was touring with Whitechapel, filling in on guitar. We were touring out with Chimaira, so it was like every couple of days I'd get to sit down with Emil and pick his brain and learn about some of his major influences, which mainly stem from gypsy jazz guys like Django Reinhardt and Jimmy Rosenburg. The way that Emil takes those gypsy jazz influences and puts them into a heavy metal framework is extremely unique. I've never really heard anything like it, so it's cool to get to know a little bit about some of the ideas that he uses, which are things that we're going to explore today. Also got to mention too, Emil is working on a solo record at the moment, which is going to pretty much blow your mind. He showed me some of the early drafts of some of the songs, and it is unlike anything I have ever heard, so get stoked for that. The lick that we're going to be taking a look at today comes from Emil's solo on the Chimaira song The Machine, which appeared on the Crown of Phantoms record, which turned out to be the last Chimaira album. With this lick, I'm going to show you some of Emil's concepts about mixing dominant 7 sounds with diminished ideas to build some extra tension. This is something that gypsy jazz guys do all the time. It's something that you never really hear in the heavy metal context, so whenever Emil does it, it really stands out and perks your ears up. It's really awesome. But before we get into it, let's hear it again at stepdad speed. And as always, you can find a full tab on my Instagram page, so be sure to go over to BenEllerGuitars, find the tab for this week's lick, learn how to play it, and upload a video of yourself playing it along with the hashtag Weekend Wankshop. So like I said, this is built around an A7 sort of sound. An A7 is an A, C sharp, E, and G. That's an A7 arpeggio. The way Emil gets around it here is really cool. He's got a couple little passing tones. What you're going to do is to start off on the 11th fret A string and slide right into that 12th fret. Notice I'm using my second finger. So there's one passing tone. Next I'm going to play that 11th fret D, 14th fret D. Middle finger here plays the 12th fret G, 13th fret G, another little passing tone, and then your 14th fret G with your little finger. So next what he starts doing is building some ideas off of a B flat diminished. Now that seems totally unrelated. You're like, I'm playing A7, why would I play B flat diminished? This is one of those mind-blowing things that Emil showed me whenever we were out on the road together. If I'm playing against A7, and I start building a full diminished 7 arpeggio off of the flat 9, in other words, 1/2 step above the root note of the chord, so A7, meet B flat. If I start playing that full diminished stuff right there, it seems like you're doing complete insanity from a lot of perspectives, but if you look at it in terms of how it relates to an A7 chord, you realize it's not that crazy. You've got a flat 9, yeah, that's a mega tense note, but the next note you end up hitting is the 3rd of that chord, then the 5 of that chord, and then the flat 7 of that chord. So actually, only one of these 4 notes was, quote unquote out. That flat 9 you started on, that's in an A7, that's in an A7, that's in an A7. That's really tense, and it's not, but that is, and that is, and that is. That's not, but that is, and that is, and that is. This is something that Emil described to me as what some people call a Django diminished. It's where you kind of start off playing a dominant sound, but then off of the flat 9, start building diminished ideas off of it, and that just strengthens resolve if you're going from a 5 chord, which is what a dominant typically is, to a 1 chord. Madness. So to accomplish this, here's what he's doing. He's starting off here on the 11th fret on the B string. That's your B flat note, again, of the B flat diminished. To give you some perspective, here's an A note, the root note of the chord. We're just going a 1/2 step above it. Now what we're going to play here is the 11th fret B, followed by the 14th fret B, 12th fret E, 15th high E, pulling back off to 12. And then we're going to play the 14th on the B again. Now again, that sounds turbo diminished, but only one of those notes was out, the one that you started on. The rest of these notes are already right there in an A7 chord. Next he throws in a little metal action with this little flat 5 lick. I'm going to play the 12th fret high E pulling up to 11. That's your 5th to flat 5th. B string here, I'm going to play 14, 11, and 14. Back to that kind of diminished feel that we had a second ago. Next, play the 12th fret high E. So now you got this. Notice how I snuck back up with my pointer finger there. It was at 11, then I snuck it up to 12. Then he plays this. So this is the 15th fret on the high E string, pulling off to 12. 14th fret B. Again, is this diminished or is this part of a A7 chord? It's hard to tell at this point. Next, what he's going to do is move that top note up a half step. So this is 16, pulling off to 12. And then the 14th fret high E. And lastly, what he's going to do is to play that 16 again and give it a quick half step bend, let it down, bring it back up a half step again to the A note, which would be the 5 of the D minor sound that's going on in the background. Kind of like that. So to break this into sections here, we have our starting point with the A7 arpeggio with a little passing tone. We enter into diminished territory. The weird flat 5 guy. Then our little climbing arpeggio. Then our bend to close it out. So cool. So there you go, guys. A sick lick from one of the coolest guitar players in existence as far as I'm concerned, and a really great friend too. Emil's a completely awesome guy and a killer player. So if you've never checked any of his stuff out, just browse around YouTube and you'll find it very, very, very easily. He's a absolutely incredible player. You could even toss that lick into a jazz tune or a gypsy jazz kind of sound and get some really cool results out of it. But as always with these videos, it's not even really necessarily the lick that's the most important part, it's the concept. And kind of the main concept I'm driving home with this particular one here is that you can take a dominant sound, you know, like let's say G dominant, and mess around at the same time with G sharp diminished, in other words, a half step above the root, diminished ideas on top of that, and get some really cool kind of outside sounds that are very typical of the kind of stuff that you'd hear in the gypsy jazz language, but they end up sounding so sweet and metal too. Marty Friedman also busts out a lot of those kinds of ideas too, so if you've listened to a lot of those classic Megadeth records, you've heard it in that context as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and also follow my antics and shenanigans over on Twitter and Instagram. And while you're at it, be sure to go follow Emil on the social media machine as well. You can find him on Twitter and Instagram. I'll put his stuff on screen right now. And you can hit me up for one-on-one Skype lessons by dropping me an email, BenEllerGuitars@gmail.com. Drop me a message and we'll talk rates and times, all that other good stuff, get you learned up. When he's not touring or doing session work, Emil also does Skype lessons. If you're interested in booking some Skype lessons with him, be sure to go to emilwerstler.com and follow the link that says contact to book some one-on-one times with him too. Hello, doggy. Thank you guys again so much for watching. Stay tuned for more cool stuff next week. Cheers.